Okay. Yeah, you know what min-maxing is. Min-maxing, when you try to make your tabletop role-playing game character as powerful as possible. Might to the nth degree, invincible builds, like the Paladin, Warlock, Multiclass, Darkness, Smite, Crit Farm build. Stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I don't love those uber-specific gotcha builds, but I do love optimization. As a dungeon master, I make really hard combats, and it's hard to do that for unoptimized parties. So when my players bring in powerful characters, it makes me kind of excited because it lets me bust out my crazy encounters for a party that can actually stand up to them. However, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about people who think they've got it down pat. They have a build that's min-max to the max. They have something that will absolutely destroy any encounter. At least, so they think. In actuality, their build is kind of not great. Some of these might be builds that you've actually heard of from YouTubers or on Reddit. And, well, I'm not gonna lie, these builds are usually not gonna be, actively terrible. They're not all that they're cracked up to be. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there. So, without further ado, today on Crispy's Academy, let's look at some min-maxers who are mid-maxing. Alright, first up, new player. I'm going to Multiclass, Artificer, and Barbarian. I'm going to be Doom Guy and Iron Man all in one. I'm going to have the modifications on all my gear and the rage boost as well. Should we tell her? Okay. If you're unaware how Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition works, Barbarian's rage ability gets shut down by, a lot of elements of the game, including just wearing armor. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you know the pain of unexpectedly putting on a piece of gear that suddenly disables, half your toolbar. And that's exactly what would happen here if this lady wanted to be Doom Guy and Iron Man. I do think this mentality is interesting, though, and something I've seen a lot. Players think they need a mechanical justification for the flavor of their character. Ginny D has talked about this before with her first, mainline character, Aisling, the Elven Warlock, who was also a druid. However, Ginny admitted herself that she didn't really know why she picked druid. She just did it because Aisling was a wood elf with nature flavor and druid just, made sense. But you don't need to pick something mechanically to make your character work in a flavor sense. Aisling can just be a nature-focused warlock with a nature flavor to her spells. She doesn't need a level in druid to justify that. Now, look, I'm not saying that you can't do an unoptimized multi-class. However, just make sure that you're aware of the weaknesses of such a character and make sure to understand the rules of how abilities stack together. D&D, when it comes to multi-classing, is not ungodly complex, but it's also not simple in my opinion. You do need to do some reading. Make sure you understand how your multi-class works, what you're actually going to benefit from, and what's actually going to be hurting you. And be aware that you can always just flavor stuff to get the fantasy that you want. This is a game in your brain after all. You don't need all the numbers to make it work. Alright, next up, one of the players has been bragging about his build since day one. Apparently, it's supposed to be some crazy crit build or something. He started out as a fighter, going 2-weapon fighting style. Then, took the dual wielder feat at 4th level instead of ASI. Then, before he got an extra attack, he multiclassed into Barbarian, despite my advice to stick to fighter for just one more level. Now, he's a level 4 fighter, level 3 Barbarian, and picked Berserker subclass. Even after I explained to him that Frenzy was worthless when you've already used your BEA for 2-weapon fighting. I still have no idea how this build is supposed to help with crits either. Yeah, I'm also at a loss here. I'm guessing he went champion for the fighter subclass, which lets you get a crit on a 19 or a 20, and then having 3 attacks, that would help you with getting crits just by virtue of you having more dice to roll, therefore more likely to get a crit. But really, there are crazier crit farm builds out there. Not to say this build is anything criminal, but it is an example of a waste of an action economy. As this commenter said, this person was already using their bonus action because they're dual-wielding weapons. A frenzied barbarian can also attack with their bonus action. That's their main thing. That's what they're good at. But you're already doing that, so why do you need the Barbarian multi-spec at all. This Barbarian was wasting their multi-class by taking Frenzy Rage when they could have had other options. Now, at the end here, I do want to be honest and say that having a wasted bonus action, it's not the worst thing ever. And even if it is a problem, I'll be honest, I'd probably just let the Barbarian fighter take a different feat. Just grab an ASI instead of having dual-wielding fighting, just because, hey, people mess up their multi-class sometimes. It happens. Knew a guy that wanted to rely solely on poison weapons as a rogue, thinking he was going to be doing a ton of damage. That is, until the DM started throwing constructs at us. Wasn't even the DM's plan. It was just part of the module. Yeah, I want to clarify for a second that I don't like it when DMs just specifically target one person's build. And frankly, if you feel like you need to do that and the build is so powerful that it has to be targeted, then that might be a build you should consider as a problem. Talk to the player about it and figure out a solution that works. Because if you need to balance all your encounters around one player character, that's not a good sign. However, that's not the issue with this build. This build simply gets neutered because poison immunity and poison resistance is not completely uncommon in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons. And obviously, that can put a pretty big damper on a rogue that clutches and relies on poison very often. There are a lot of builds like this that people get super uber hyped over. Like Aarakocra Warlocks that have Eldritch Blast sniper rifles, flying up so high, nothing can hit them and just sniping from a distance. But that build has a lot of problems when you think about it for more than like 3 seconds. Like for starters, what if you're just indoors? Or what if there's a canopy? Or it's cloudy? Or it's dark? Beyond that, there are even more issues just considering that the rest of the party are still down there in the fight. Like, if everyone else goes down, the Aarakocra is that high up. I mean, that might as well be a TPK. That Aarakocra ain't really helping in the combat. And also, in my opinion, taking some hits for the team is a big part of what allows players to win in my combats. Because if I focus my attacks solely on, like, individual characters, those individual characters are almost definitely going to die. People are constantly hitting 0 hit points in my combats, so my squishy characters sometimes need to jump into the fray just to tank some hits so that their frontliners can get back in the fight. The point is with both builds that yes, a Poison Rogue, an Eldritch Blast Sniper Rifle Aarakocra, those are both powerful, but you need to be aware that they have weaknesses. And if anything, that's what, in my opinion, makes for a fun min-max build. Like sometimes, you do have a Kryptonite, and you gotta be okay if that Kryptonite comes into play every now and then. Especially if it's something as common as poison immunity, or just, being indoors. For me, nothing's gonna beat this classic. I'm multi-classing Monk and Barbarian to get unarmored defense for both con and wisdom, despite the multi-classing rules explicitly calling out that these don't stack. It's so small and simple and stupid. And yet, it's so common for new players and min-maxers who are bad at min-maxing and don't actually read the rules. Oh my god, yeah, the classic lesson of read the damn books, pretty please. Your DMs and like everybody around you. We're all begging you to please read the books before you claim to have a game-breaking strategy. I mean, this is a really common one, thinking that you can get a super high AC with both con and wisdom. And I'll be honest, like, this isn't really that much of a crazy min-max, even if it did hypothetically work. I mean, like, combine the two stats, yeah, you have a decently high AC, but a lot of monsters have AoE abilities that require a saving throw. And a lot of monsters, at least in my games, have, like, plus double digits to hit. Like, there's a good chance I'm still gonna grab you. So, I don't even think this is that powerful a build in the first place. It's not as crazy as some wizard shield builds, and those are wizards, for Christ's sake, backliners, and some of them can get higher armor classes. But yeah, that's kind of mute, because this build doesn't work. It doesn't work because people don't read the nitty-gritty of the rules, and this happens all the time in min-maxing circles. You hear all the stories about people throwing their Darren's Instant Fortress so they can kill a dragon in one hit, when the rules actually factor that in. Like, not just in the new 2024 DMG where they way more explicitly factor it in. It was already factored in. People just didn't pay attention. Look, I get it. Reading comprehension is really, really hard. But before you think something is uber broken, check the rules first. And hey, if you think it should still be allowed, like maybe you don't think a monk barbarian having a higher armor class would be that much of a problem, talk to your DM about it. Maybe they'll be lenient, who knows. I'm a blind fighter and I can see with my ears, so it's actually a superpower and it makes me able to see in the dark, and I'm pretty sure that there's no drawbacks to being blind raw, and this is an original idea. Daredevil, who's Daredevil? Daredevil, who's Daredevil? You know, that's a question Marvel Rivals is currently asking as well. Yeah, put Jessica Jones and Daredevil in the game, please. But anyway, back to Dungeons & Dragons. I play a blind character in my games as well. My Dark Urge character from Baldur's Gate 3 and my Paladin character in my D&D games is Asa, a character who wears a blindfold and is blind. And she is made as a drow, a species that already has dark vision. So any hypothetical DM I'd be playing Asa with, at least I hope, wouldn't mind if I have sense in darkness, because if I was an able-bodied character with my eyes in my head, I'd still be able to see in the dark. However, beyond that, I wouldn't mind a Toph-type character, a human who wouldn't normally have dark vision. I wouldn't mind that character having dark vision through their blindness. It really wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. I certainly wouldn't handicap this hypothetical character. I really hope most DMs wouldn't do that. I think playing a blind character is cool as hell, but I think it would be way less cool if I had, like, disadvantage on every single one of my attacks. That would make things just lame. I don't think characters like my Asa should have crazy benefits, but a hypothetical blind human character getting dark vision is just really not that big of a deal to me. Dark vision is not something that comes up in the vast majority of my games. I actually just let my human have like a slightly reduced vision radius because it's not that big of a deal to me. I think about it, but not enough where it cripples my human barbarian in darkness. It's just not that big of a deal. So I actually think this one is okay. I think it's fine for a character to have some minor benefits to their flavor. But at the same time, I would understand a DM who doesn't want to do that. Just talk to your dungeon master about it. Like, get the flavor that they're going for and see if they would be okay with this. Because, I mean, frankly, I don't think it hurts to ask, because I'd totally be down for this. Alright, next up, I had DM once say I was difficult to balance around, and I was a min-maxer for playing a half-orc battlemaster. Even better, due to roleplay reasons, my main weapon was a longsword held in both hands, and my armor was chainmail until probably level 4 or 5, which was conveniently ignored when I told that I don't roleplay either. Alright, now, this one is interesting. We just talked about a DM who may have been overreacting to a blind human hypothetically getting dark vision, but here is a DM who was definitely overreacting to an orcish fighter. Remember at the beginning of the video where I talked about just having optimized characters? Like, this is what that is. You picked a race and a class combination that allowed you to get a good stat distribution for what you wanted out of your build. Presumably high strength for a fighter. And I think that that's fine. If anything, I find it to be rather welcome in my games. I run, like I said, harder combat. So if you come in with a wizard with bad intelligence, you're going to die. Period. End of story. You're not going to make it out alive. At the same time, even if you're running a more casual game, I find that a character who has like an extra +1 because of their race, that's not going to destroy your game. Frankly, if your game balance is so fragile that a fighter happening to be orcish is enough to destroy all of it, then I think your game balance is bad. Look, I think there are absolutely times where a character goes too far, is way too strong, and basically wins D&D and makes the rest of the party irrelevant, and that is a problem. But this isn't that. I think the DM is just bad at encounter balance, which frankly is one of the things in D&D that takes a while to learn. There's a reason why I haven't made like an encounter balance video, just because I think there's a crap ton of things to talk about, a lot of complexity there, and a lot of it is just down to vibes. I just kind of feel out my encounters until I feel like they're right, and I just happen to be correct most of the time. I don't really know how I do it. I just got practice, I guess. The point is, balancing is hard, but that doesn't mean you need to unleash your rage at every single orcish fighter or barbarian out there. Those guys, they're just doing what they're good at. Don't blame them for it. All right, that's the end of the video. We had 4 builds that weren't actually all that, and 2 builds where the DM was just straight up overreacting. I think we got a pretty good spread in this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Welcome, by the way, to our new channel, Crispy's Academy. This is the premiere video. I know it's going up on Friday, but we will be normally uploading on Wednesdays, the normal Tabletop Tavern Tips day. So if you're subscribing to this channel, expect your next video to be sooner than you'd imagine, next Wednesday. But anyway, like I said, if you guys are new here, please subscribe to Crispy's Academy. This is a brand new channel. I'm getting off the ground. Looking forward to having lots of D&D advice content. And also subscribe to our main channel, Crispy's Tavern, if you're interested in some D&D tales and tea. Lots of fun drama over there. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. And finally, if you want to leave your own tips or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment mid or min-max to let me know I made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell. Why don't you have the slides pulled up? I pulled up People's Ride in general, but I didn't pull up the actual slides. What the heck? What was I doing?